Thank you for joining For Our Special Kids, where we openly and honestly discuss the magic and the mess of raising a child with special needs. We are thrilled to have you here and hope this time provides you with some wonder and wisdom. I'm your host, Jennifer Lansing. Let's get started. Annemarie Miller is a positive, powerful force in this world. Her determination to dedicate her life to her family and her son, Caleb, after his non-fatal drowning when he was 17 months old is a story worth hearing. So today she tells us her story of life after an unthinkable accident. She shares honestly about how guilt could have destroyed her family and her marriage, but that making a choice each day to see things with a different lens made all the difference. Annemarie is funny, real, heartfelt, and beautiful, and she is my friend. I hope you take a few nuggets away from our chat because I certainly did. As always, I hope you enjoy and let me know what you think. I am so excited to introduce you to Annemarie because she is one of my friends, somewhat new. It's been like 2 years, right, Annemarie?
Yes, indeed.
And we'll get into maybe how we met later, but I don't know. Let me introduce you. Okay. So Annemarie Miller is a wife, a mom to six children, and a grandma, otherwise known as Mimi, to 4 grandchildren. That's my word. In partnership with her family, she dedicated the past 16 years to her youngest child, who at 17 months of age survived a drowning accident, which caused a profound traumatic brain injury. Through her ongoing search to locate and obtain successful therapies for her son, she gained a wealth of experience, training, and knowledge. This amazing journey has now led to the creation of her new nonprofit, Project One Cause, whose mission is to provide education, support, and financial resources to families with children affected by non-fatal drowning and hypoxic-anoxic brain injury. Annemarie, there's so much here. So I was just like literally overcome with spirit, like popping in and being like, oh, are you ready for this conversation?
It's kind of a big one. Yes, I will say that.
It is. So Annemarie, thank you so much for joining us and being willing to share your story and a lot of the lessons that you've learned along the way with our listeners. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my distinct pleasure and my honor to be with you today and to be able to share our story. And of course, you've known me for a couple of years, so we should have a good time with the process.
We should tell the listeners to hang on for the ride.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. So let's talk about your son and the meaning of his name and really the journey that has led you here.
Sure, of course. So we had 5 children, and I was actually doing at the time, I thought my dream job, which was working with older adults. I was in the health and holistic well-being industry, and it was my passion. I basically skipped to work every day and then was just so invested in helping seniors expand their own wellness and well-being when found out that we were having baby number 6. And it was like, oh,
surprise!
Dear. Oh, hello. Yes. And so
you do. Hold on. Let me ask you. You do know how you get babies, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 6 times I do. Yes.
Okay.
So we were thinking, okay, so what are we going to do about naming this baby? And my father is from Tipperary, from Ireland, and have that background with my Irish heritage. So we started looking and found some very interesting names. We came across one, and Caleb is Gaelic. And we thought, well, that's kind of a fun thing to honor my family and my father. So we said, okay, we'll name this new baby Caleb. So interestingly enough, Caleb's name in Gaelic means heavenly. And I'm going to get a little choked up here. So
I just got shivers. Heavenly.
Yes, so
yeah.
And then we decided to call his middle name Dante, which of course means everlasting. So we have this. I know it's a lot. we have this beautiful baby, and I was not, in my early 20s when I had this baby. So I did have some health challenges with him, carrying him at a different season of my life, if you will. And it was a lot. So Caleb arrived. Of course, the whole family was excited and ecstatic. And he was a very inquisitive baby from day one. And so I think that's kind of where we really got to know Caleb's ideas about his life. It's such a tiny little baby because he wanted to do everything all at once. And that stayed true as he got older. And of course, being around 5 other siblings and much older, the oldest one was 18 actually at the time. So he was a little advanced for his age, and about 15, 16 months, he could run and throw a ball, and mid-run, he was talking already and just very curious. To the degree where we were kind of concerned about his ability to undo locks on screen doors and try to go outside and explore on his own. So really a very dynamo of a baby. So
Yeah.
and super excited about how smart he was and what his potential was. Late in 2003, our tradition on a New Year's Eve, because we had teenagers, was to go to a local Teppan restaurant in the afternoon on New Year's Eve, and then come home and play games and kind of be off the road when people are out, partying or doing what they're doing. And we didn't want to take those risks with our kids. So that December 31st of 2006, Caleb was 17 months at that point in time, and we were all getting ready to go out for 4:30 p.m. was our reservation. And we were all in various stages of the house. We had a fence and a gate that was closed, and Jacob, the next sibling up, who was 5 at the time, and Caleb were playing on the tiny little patio. And it's something that you just know as a mom or as a dad, where there's this weird silence and you know that something is very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just came down the hall. My husband and I looked at each other, and it was like Jacob was in the house getting a drink, and it's like, oh my God, where is Caleb? So we hit the backyard and went around both sides of the house because there was a fence and a gate there, not even looking into that area, when my husband called to me, and I was at the front of the house on the other side, and said, and he had pulled him out of the pool. And I came over, and with all my first aid and CPR training, I was kind of frozen until I just decided I'm just going to do what I'm told to do, and God's directing me. So just started CPR and aspirations poolside. I worked in the town in which I live, so I knew the fire department because of working at the retirement community. So it was really hard for them to kind of peel me off of that little body, but
Yeah.
they took over. They took him to Pomona Valley Hospital, and he was not resuscitated for another 60 minutes. So a total of, I think, about 70, 75 minutes where he was just flat lying. There was nothing. So,
Okay, let's just
yeah,
take a deep breath because
yeah,
I'm crying over here. I've actually cried twice now, and I'm pulled
really,
myself back together.
yeah.
So,
It's a lot. Yeah. So
it's a
please
lot.
ask. Yeah.
No, but okay. So I think it's really, really important to stress something, and then I want you to continue. But your pool was locked, there was a gate, and there was a fence. And
Yes.
that's, I just really want to stress that because we've talked about this, and
We've talked about
you
this.
didn't
No,
even look there because
we
it
didn't
was
even look.
locked and it was
Mhm.
fenced and it was gated and it wasn't even an
Yes.
option. Mm-hmm.
No,
Okay.
and I think later too, just to kind of jump forward a little bit, where we had to really think about all of us parents as caregivers and our young children, we put our safety protocols in place. You put your baby in a car seat and your toddler in a car seat. You put them in the bath ring. You don't leave them alone. And just you put sunscreen on. You cut up their grapes. Everything
Mm-hmm.
like that
Mm-hmm.
is how we manage. And it just was a very, very terribly unfortunate accident. And I will tell you, starting this nonprofit, just to give a little backstory away from what I was just talking about, it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a challenge too, still to
We'll
talk
get
about.
into that. Yeah, I would imagine it's hard to talk
Yeah.
about it.
I was a water safety instructor and started teaching swimming lessons to babies when I was 15 and a half. And the statistics of what the Red Cross taught then about between the ages of 1 and 4, it was the leading cause of death or disability in children, is still true today. No matter with the gate, a fence, those pool covers where you see the elephant standing on top of them, you've got alarms going off, you have notifications on your phone, you have sensors you can put in your kids' pull up. With all of those things in place, it still happens because it's just an accident.
It's an
And for
accident.
whatever reason, that was what our divine order was, if you will,
Yep.
that Caleb was to do that, and we were to start our journey with him. And so that I just wanted to say that because that's a good point. It's something that uh, interestingly also is our pediatrician said it's the ones that are really smart that seem to get into the most trouble.
Trouble.
Yes.
Yes, it's true. You're like, dang it all.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we still
Wow.
don't know how he got back there to this
No.
day. There's no way to know.
And we've talked, you had Child Protective Services come in, and I mean, it was
Oh,
traumatic for you. So you have a child that was clinically dead for
yeah.
70 minutes
Mm-hmm.
who is resuscitated. By the way, miracle of all miracles that your town kept working on him,
Yeah.
because I've never heard of that they just said, we are going to bring this baby back.
Well, and curious to that too, because of where I worked at the retirement community called Hillcrest, the chaplain just happened to be on emergency duty at the hospital that night because the hospital's chaplain had called off sick. And she was there and kind of sent the word out. So I think all of these things kind of came into play, if you will, from a spiritual perspective, from an emotional. The prayer requests went out wide and far to many communities. And we know with distinction that is part of the reason why Caleb, was able to be revived. And shortly after that happened, he was very cold. I mean, it was December 31st. Our pool water was, I think, like 42 degrees. It was some ridiculous cold degree. And he was very cold. And unfortunately, the hospital, and this is no slight to Pomona Valley because they saved his life there, but they didn't have the protocol in place where they would slowly warm the body up over a few days and keep him in a kind of a hypothermic state. So
Yeah.
they warmed him up very quickly. And as a result of that, and aside from the global damage, he also had a huge focal stroke that affected him, which we just didn't find out until recently when I was looking over all of his medical records. And I would imagine now we're 16 years out from this incident that nobody was going to talk about that because it seemed kind of minor compared to just keeping him alive at the time.
Right.
So, yeah, it was very interesting to find that out after all these years. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it brought you right back there. Like, whoa.
It did. And then it kind of made sense because the way that over the years with different professionals that we have found through our different modalities have been like, well, they see kids who have had non-fatal drownings and they look a very specific way. But then he had a different component added in there and nobody could figure it out. And even I couldn't figure it out. I thought, what is that? That's really interesting. So now we know what that is, but it just gives more power to the story of the brain and its ability to recover and all the things that we have found along the way to help him do that very thing.
Right. So, okay, let's fast forward and we can go back and talk more about the story because actually there's some really, really profound things that we've talked about in the past about the concept of the accident and how people look at you.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to fast forward really quickly. So tell me about Caleb right now so that we know like he's amazing.
Yeah,
he's magical.
He's very magical and he's the profound teacher. He's 17. He still is working on his mobility to try and get to walking. Years ago, he did say that even though he was walking, and by say, I mean typing, he types to communicate, much like a lot of autistic children do. It's a very common thing. But he told us that he knew one day he would get to walking because he did it at some point, and he knew that was in his brain. So his devotion to his recovery from an internal perspective is really profound to see when I look at what he does every day and how happy he is and how joyful he is. And I think that's a blessing across all places and time and space. And he doesn't look at himself as having a disability. He doesn't perceive himself as being something other than, the amazing person that he is. And that's something that he brought back with him when he was resuscitated, I'm sure, and we can probably talk about that some other time. But I think the absolute joy of watching him do things that, first of all, we were told he would never achieve, never, ever. And that's kind of what we were told no so many times. But one of the things that struck me about the no is that he looks at no as he has numerous opportunities now. So no doesn't mean what we know to be no. He's turned no into numerous opportunities. And he finds problem solving. He uses a manual wheelchair. He's a boss on the iPad. He's done schoolwork, elevated college courses since he was small, and just really kind of astounded us in the scope of what he knows and how he balances his abilities with his functional challenges. So it's spectacular to see him. I love being with him. It's kind of hard when I've had to travel to be away from him, just because his energy is just so positive, and he really lights up a room, and he sees the best in everyone that interacts with him. So it's really hard to describe, but he's fantastic.
I know exactly what you're talking about because, I have one of those beings.
Yes. Yes, you do.
And numerous opportunities.
Opportunities. And you'll see on our website, I go into a little bit of that just because, as you know, with Teal and all the moms that we know together and the ones that we're going to learn about and know in the future, you have no, that can't be true. I don't see that. That's not a possibility. Yeah. And even if we're in denial because of the grief at the beginning, it turned into something else. And now Caleb is actually he emulates that. You can turn your life into whatever you need to for yourself. But I think too, that was a decision that we made as a family, as you and I have talked about that, to allow that to happen for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm like, we need to get him on this podcast. I'm like, we could just get some questions written down and he could type out the answers and then we could all interact. It would be amazing.
Be honored to do that. He would totally, yes, because he's actually going to be writing his own story. Can I do a little plug for him now?
Go for it. Plug away, sister.
Okay. So what we're going to do, so Caleb is a very spiritually evolved person, and there's a whole story to him, but what he's wanting to do now is to write a book about how to help people and what his purpose is here. So what we're doing is we're setting up a Podia platform for him, and he will share a one-page, very condensed, concise description of what happened to him and what he is here for. And then he's going to ask the Podia group to submit their questions to him so he can help them with challenges, difficulties, something that they're possibly struggling with. And we will publish his answers to the whole group. And then from that, gather all of that information and include it in the book that he is writing. So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we're really excited that he's going to offer that to be of service to humanity. That's the whole point of the nonprofit. We have learned that from Caleb, that the greatest thing we can do is to be of service to one another and to soften the journey, to be a support system. Oh, I'm going to cry a little. Sorry.
It's okay. Cry away.
Yeah. And, try to share the burden with other families and moms and dads and caregivers, because no one is alone in this. We're together, even though sometimes it feels like you're an island by yourself. And I can testify to that.
Yeah. I think that's something that's really important for people to hear if they're new to this journey. I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't even use the word disability or special needs or handicapped for years. Now, I still don't like those words, but I mean, I believe that she's got extraordinary special needs that have highlighted our world and made it amazing. But I also have to somewhat be honest when I'm going into an IEP and I'm talking to doctors, and, they said, you need to get a handicap placard. And I'm like, what? No, no, I don't need a handicap placard. And they're like, Jen, it's just going to make your life a little easier when you're
Easier.
carrying her before she's walking. And I'm like, oh, and so if you're on this journey and you're still in that no,
Mhm.
no, as in numerous opportunities, but you're not there yet. You're not seeing numerous opportunities. You're in a black hole, or you've climbed into a cave, or you're hanging on to dear life because it's the only thing you can do is just wake up in the morning and breathe.
Yes.
It's okay. And
It's
we
okay.
are here for you. And there is community. And I know that word's a little overused these days, but we are all in this together and we bring each other up, especially when we need someone to hold our hand.
Yes. And I think, well, for me personally, we had five older children to also consider with everything. And when we started looking into other possibilities for Caleb to find therapies or modalities that would help him, it was a delicate balance. The older two boys were 17 and 18, and it was really tough on them. So it was more reliant on us to try to keep the disability concept out of it, although they were very well aware because they looked at their brother and didn't see anything happening. Where we were celebrating this tiny little victory. Oh, he swallowed once by himself. He moved a centimeter. I mean, we were having parties over things like that. But it took us a little bit to get there because you don't know what life is going to look like. And I remember telling this to you, Jen. I had a wonderful friend. We're still friends. We just don't see each other very often. But her son, Tyler, was born with very severe cerebral palsy, which is a hypoxic or an anoxic brain injury. And Tyler lived until he was 12, and then he sadly passed away. But she came to see us when we were in the rehab hospital. So Kaylin was at Children's Hospital of Orange County for a month. Just to go back a little bit in time, he was in a coma for 3.5 weeks, had to have feeding tubes and all kinds of stuff done to him. And then he was transferred to a rehab facility for 4 months. And she came to see me, I think, maybe 2 months after I was there. And I'll never forget, her name is Maureen Young. So, Maureen, I'm giving you a shout out because it's just stuck with me all these years. But
Mm-hmm.
she took me outside and we were under this beautiful tree at this facility and said, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Your life is going to look way different now, and it's going to be totally okay. And you just need to remember that. You're going to take him and do everything that you would have done with him. It's just going to look different. You might need to have some more preparation involved. But what they did was taught with Tyler, they took him to baseball games. They've made his life full and robust despite having to do all that extra work. And the other thing that struck me about that conversation was the fact that she said, I want you to really listen to me. I want you every day. You get up, you take a shower, you put your face on, and you don't stay in your PJs and you don't wear sweatpants and you get dressed because you're going to go do your day. Sorry, I didn't mean to clap, but that's kind of what she did. And it's going to be a good day, and you just decide that it's going to be a good day. And you know what? The day may go to hell in a handbasket. But when you get up the next day, you get up and you first, and this is the other thing we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about on these podcasts, is self-care.
Yeah.
Just the fact of taking a shower and getting your clothes on, never mind putting your face on, but just getting up and getting ready for the day is a pivotal decision that you make in order to address the overwhelmingness of some of those days with your child. It's a lot. And it
I
still is a lot.
Yeah, I was on mute because I was crying.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry, but I'm surprised you didn't like break down because I was like literally on
I'm
video,
trying
you
not
guys.
to,
I'm like
yeah,
crying.
yeah. I'm trying not to look at your face while I'm talking because if I start, it's going to be really hard to
I
not do
know.
to rein it in. So I
Well,
appreciate your patience
don't
there.
look at me.
Hey,
Just
don't look at me.
just don't look at me. I'm like a blubbering mess over here. So a couple of things that you said that I wanted to highlight. What you said about you're going to do everything that you would. It's just going to look different.
It's just going to look
It's
different.
just going to look different.
And
And
and it's more fun when you can really understand that because it takes the pressure off of us to have our child look like any other kid. And we had 5 to compare Caleb to,
oh
and
yeah.
we just decided to do that.
Yeah. And it's something that I think all parents need to realize and need to just really hear it in their heart is you got to go out and do it. Life is worth living and this magical entity needs to be out. I remember when I got a very clear message from Teal of I need to be out and showing the world my joy. Mm-hmm. You know, telepathically, she said, you've got to travel with me more. You have to get me out because I have to have this, I have to influence people's worlds. Mm-hmm. And that's part of our reason why we need to get them out, not necessarily for them. It's for the entire world.
It is. It's actually, we're doing a service by getting the kids out. There was just to speak to that, it's interesting because I'm working with seniors, you see all levels of ability. And I guess that was a gift to me, right? To be able to easily integrate that idea into now my own child's recovery and his progress. But, there's challenges in that too, when you take your child into the world, because then you're starting to assess things. But I think really to further your point, the idea that life doesn't end when your child has a situation that looks insurmountable because you just make a decision. Because when you decide to do something and then you have the discipline to carry it through, then you see the joy that they can bring other people when you're not expecting it. I mean, we've had that happen so many times where we meet people that will come up to us and say, hey, buddy, how are you? And they're not even looking at us as parents, but they address Caleb directly because they can see something about him that's appealing to them. And then you have the other side. And there's always going to be one side or the other. But when Maureen shared that with me about just taking him out to go do whatever it is, it also provides a level of I don't want to say gratitude, but something, validation maybe, that might not be the perfect word, but that you're offering your child an opportunity to participate no matter how they do it. And how they do it and how they look like doing it doesn't matter. And we didn't let it stop us. And I think that's just because my personality is in that world. And I think because of the other kids, it was easier for us possibly as older parents too, to go there. But 100%. The other thing is one of our missions is to help children in the nonprofit is to help children become the best version of themselves, whatever that is. Right. So to give parents the support to make those decisions to just, you know what, I'm going to go to the library with my kid. I'm going to go here and I'm going to have strangers opening the door for me. And it's going to bless them on that moment that they didn't realize how profound that interaction was until maybe some other time in their life later on. And I think it's just speaks to the power that our kids have to be of service by just being in the environment or being in the community.
Yeah, it's profound. I completely agree with you. People know Teal. They don't know me in our community. Like I'm Teal's mom. We've talked about this before on the podcast. Like I am so not Jen. I am literally Teal's mom. I mean, people are like, hi, Teal's mom. I'm like, hey.
Yep. That's your identity.
And I am proud.
Fine.
Exactly. I am so proud to be that person. So one thing I wanted to go back to something which we've talked about before, And I hope you're okay with it. If you're not okay with it, we'll just edit this out. So we've talked about there's one thing where you have a child in utero and you find out that you will have a child with a disability or an extra special demand, a challenged opportunity, yada, however you say it. Then there's somebody like me who finds out, okay, she's not progressing normally. She's not hitting those damn milestones that we all love as parents, and all of that. So then you get that diagnosis. And for me, that was a slap in the face and I wasn't expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew she was behind, but I wasn't prepared. And then you have something like your instance where it was an accident, like you talked about. How does a family who's all in the house, right? You were all getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was there. I know we've talked about this, and if you're okay talking about it,
I'm okay.
It's how do you deal with that? How do you all process that?
Well, first of all, I have to say that drownings are a silent event. And there's no, like in the movies, they would show kids splashing or whatever, and that's not accurate at all. So it's a silent event. So there was no warning, of course, to that. I think, and you and I have talked about this, when Kaylin was resuscitated and, I think I was out of my body probably for weeks, in and out, just trying to figure out where he was and where I was. And we stayed, my husband, mostly me, but my husband did share that responsibility of I didn't come home for 4 months. I stayed at the hospital and I stayed at the rehab hospital. And during that process, there was a lot of support to the kids from my parents and from aunts and uncles and family friends. But my husband, Michael, and my husband, we didn't really discuss this, but we kind of came to realize in an intuitive, unspoken way that we were not going to be saddled with guilt about what happened. Especially since we did have to deal with Child Protective Services does that because that's their job to investigate. And so we had to deal with that trauma. But after that event, when he was still in the PICU, we just had this knowing, if you will, that there was going to be no way to service Caleb's greater recovery potential if we were burdened with guilt, and that would translate into the family dynamic. And so, and again, I don't know if it's because we already had 5 children and we were older parents. I don't think so. I think it was a spiritual connection between my husband and I that we could see that look, this has happened and we're going to have to go forward and basically keep our, what together so the kids don't freak out because we're freaking out about what's going to happen. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think the bigger thing that I want to express to parents is that we all have that 3:00 in the morning wake up, and then you start going, well, what if this, and what if I have done this, and what, and on and on and on, and that you replay that tape in your head over and over again, and then you get up, and then first of all, you're tired. Second of all, then you're dealing with something else maybe that day that you didn't expect. And it just didn't serve a purpose to really sit down somehow. And I don't remember sitting down very much back then. I still don't. You know me and my AAA personality. That how can we best serve Caleb's needs without him picking up on the fact that we feel responsible for what happened, or I feel responsible as his mom. And, I must be a terrible person that we had an accident happen, even though we had protocols in place. And you have to figure out how to work with that as an internal conversation. And I had it very few times because I just made a decision that I was not going to let that stuff creep into my consciousness. And that is something that it takes dedication. You have to practice it. You have to say it, and you have to basically fake it till you make it, because you will not believe it most of the time when you're first in those experiences as a new parent, or into a new realm of reality. And I think that would be my most sage advice. I don't know, again, how practical that is, but I really think it does have some value, because the discipline and forcing yourself to look at something in a positive way takes, time and effort, but it certainly has been worth it when we look at how we approached Caleb after he was able to come home.
Yeah, you said so many profound things there. So one, people don't love that phrase, fake it till you make it. I know that kind of
No.
creates some energy in people that's like,
Yes.
but there
Yes.
is, the law of attraction. There's actually scientific evidence that when you squeeze the smile muscles upwards, that it actually influences your mood and how you view the world. So I believe wholeheartedly in what you're saying, is that you have a choice, and it does take discipline. You said it takes discipline, and I like to talk about it. You have to catch yourself, but then when you catch yourself, you can't berate yourself. So there's this fine line where you catch yourself in the negative thought, and you can't be like, damn you, negative thought. It's like, no, hold on. That's counterproductive. Catch yourself, gently say, thank you, thought. Now get out of here, and find a little bit better feeling. Just a little. You don't have to go from poop to rose petals, right? Like, you don't have to go there. You can go from poop to a little bit better poop.
Yeah.
Just, and then maybe just poop on the grass.
Yes.
From a dog. I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean, right? Like, you don't have to bounce from depression into bliss.
No,
But
small steps, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking too. I was thinking when you were bringing that up about all this discussion about being in the present moment, and when you're looking at your child that has a host of complicated issues, and you're just trying to get through the day without them throwing up or pulling out their feeding tube, which was Caleb's favorite thing to do, you're just being, and tiny little changes. And so the present moment is a huge challenge. But when I started to really pay attention to what that looked like in reality, working with Caleb and being with him all the time, you sense a presence about yourself where you can easily, well, no, I shouldn't say easily. I was able to more easily redirect my attention to away from that negative thought, like, oh my God, he just threw up and there's feed all over and he took out the tube. And so instead of doing that, I'm like, oh, look, he decided that he didn't want his feeding tube in there, so he pulled it out. Just that one
and the fact that he could pull it out.
Yes.
He wasn't even moving a centimeter.
No. But that one little hand, the right hand could move. And so he figured out how to do that. But that was a profound moment. And that was very much in the beginning to see that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Instead of being upset that I had to deal with it, it's like, oh, that's really interesting that he did that. And so I want to see him do that again. Not really, but the fact that he could,
right.
I want him to repeat that.
Yes. One thing that I started doing recently is going back and watching videos of Teal, because that really helps you see the change.
Yes.
Because we're living in this, and we're all therapists, right? Every single one of us is a therapist, whether we're trained with Sylvia, which is how we both met one another, yes. Sylvia Shordike, or we're speech therapists, or we're feeding therapists, or we're OT, PT. Dude, all we do every day is like, okay, how can I make this a therapeutic experience for my child, still be her mother, and still have her enjoy life? What? So, right. And be this person that she's supposed to be, and not tell her, not have her feel like she's not enough because she's more than enough. And this is nonstop chatter, right? That's in your head. Yeah. Did I just get into your head, Anne-Marie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Scary, but true. It was lovely being in there with you. Yeah. But, when you go back even a year, go back 4 years and find a video of your child and just be like, oh my gosh, we have come so far.
Yes. Yeah. It's profound when you look at it that way. And for parents and caregivers or families that are at the beginning, I think it's really critical that you photograph and you video. And we didn't, so Caleb's accident happened at the end of 2006. So we weren't as savvy with the cell phone and the video back then. So a lot of things we captured in photographs, which don't do the same justice in a lot of ways, especially when you're trying to capture a kid that's, going to move a centimeter. You can't see that in a photo, but we have enough to go back. But I think to revisit that it's a powerful testimony, because most of us are in the go mode. We're going today, we're getting up, we're doing this, we're having this, we're going to have speech, we're going to have that, we're going to have lessons, we're going to do hyperbaric, whatever we're doing. And so we get invested in the going mode, and then you just sort of go from there, and you're not really looking at how far your child has come. So I think that's a valuable piece of history that you can review going forward, because even I have forgotten when I look back. And Caleb, as he got older, we don't have small children. The oldest one is 6'6", and then they go 6'4", 6'3" from there. So we're like the family of trees.
Yes, you are.
And so, Caleb is a tall boy. And so, he was able to do some things when he was a little younger, when he didn't have the length and the volume and the mass but it hasn't affected anything because he's accelerated in other aspects of his life. So, but just to look back on that, I think is a powerful resource that we have right at our fingertips as parents, for sure.
Yeah. And I also want to highlight when other people come to visit and they say, oh my gosh, like they see these profound changes, even in 3 months, or maybe a video doesn't show the difference, but all of a sudden they see it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to really celebrate too. And even to ask, whether it's a grandmother or a neighbor or a cousin or an auntie, and just say, what do you see in Caleb that's different than the last time you were here?
Well, I will tell you that, excuse me, he had his triennial, which is the every 3-year IEP.
Yes.
And we just completed it in February. And 2, or I would say 3 of the original team members, so we're going back 13 years, 3 of the original team members, and then the other ones were new. Caleb demonstrated some amazing growth early on because of his age. And when the brain gets to be about 6 or 7, it starts to slow down a little bit, and then it picks up again when we get into puberty. And as much as I know about the brain, I still feel like I know less now because there's just so much to know about it. But just for the sake of discussion, that's kind of the encapsulated information. And so it wasn't discouraging because I see the progress in different ways that are viewed by traditional methods of evaluation, like through the school district. But this particular evaluation from the last time, they were just blown away by his interaction with them, his ability to, relate to them in a way verbally, and also maneuver his environment with his manual chair. And we've made a very distinct decision about not giving him a power chair. That's been on advice and counsel from the institutes who we were affiliated for many years, because there's still that potential for him to access walking, and he wants to achieve that. So we don't want to take that opportunity away by providing that. But nonetheless, he wheeled into we have a very small house, and there's a lot of turns and twists, and he only uses the right arm to manage that wheelchair, but he was able to take the OT into the kitchen, open the freezer, pull out the coconut ice cream and hand it to her and say, let's have some. And she has known him since he was 4.5 and was just floored at what she was seeing.
Yeah.
So it's that. And to some other family or some other situation, that wouldn't be, as impactful, but it was a tremendous victory for him. And he was so proud of himself. And mind you, he's been homeschooled, has not been in the community. He does have immune disorder, so we can't have him out. And we've been very fortunate because of COVID. It didn't really affect what we were doing at home. But to see that interaction and to see the joy in Pauline's face, the OT, was just remarkable to me. And it made my heart soar, not as his mom necessarily, but for Caleb's experience.
Yeah.
for what he was able to demonstrate to her. And it was just really profound and tremendously purposeful and validating to him, for sure.
I believe that is when I find the most pride, is when I see how thrilled Teal is in herself, and that everything that we're doing is to just build them up. It's not about me. It's about her and the message that she's here to give the world. And it sounds like Caleb is doing that.
Yeah, he is. And he's just getting started, mind you.
He's just getting started.
Yeah.
So we are going to bring you back because I know there's some other things that I want to chat with you about. However, before we do, tell us how people can find your nonprofit and if they can donate.
Oh, yes. So the nonprofit is called Project One Cause, and its word one is spelled out, and it's projectonecause.org. You can read about the story and see pictures of Caleb throughout the years. I mean, it's been a long journey, and it's just the beginning now with the launching of this. We're brand new, so we're looking for donors and support so we can begin to financially aid families, but also to do the peer-to-peer work. So that's basically what my role will be initially, is to provide kind of like what we're talking about in the podcast. If a mom wants to talk to me, and this has happened over the years, I would encourage you to take time to read the story. Take a look at the different resources. We have a beautiful resource list, which is probably only 1/3 of everything else that we've done, but we picked the most important and the most pivotal things to help parents kind of look around and explore possibilities for their child. And of course, there's a chat button there. You can send an email to me and we'll respond accordingly. So
I think what you're doing on the nonprofit is a lot of what I'm trying to do here, is giving people just quick access to a lot of different things. And I love that you're able to say, hey, there's a resource page. And if you want to know more about why the chamber works so well for us, let us know. If you want to know why neuroplasticity is so important and brain development, or, all of that, you can reach out to Annemarie. She's a wonderful, wonderful person and an incredible resource for anybody listening. So Annemarie, thank you so very much for joining us today. And I'm excited to have you back.
Thank you so much. It was my great pleasure.
It's an honor. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found 1 or 2 meaningful nuggets of information to make your day better. If you think there's value in what we do, please take a moment to tell another friend, family member, or a caregiver. We'd love to hear from you at forourspecialkids@gmail.com. You can send in a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like to learn more about, or if you'd like us to highlight a certain person, please send that information to us. It makes our show so much better and so much more valuable for you. Our Facebook and Instagram handle is For Our Special Kids. And finally, remember to witness the wonder and the wisdom within yourself and others. Until next time.